Last week I wasn't here because I was in New York preaching at a men's conference. It was Friday and Saturday, and I got back late Saturday night. I took my two sons with me, Malachi and Josiah, and a couple of men from our staff. The conference was in Brooklyn. I'm originally from Queens, and growing up I spent a lot of time in Brooklyn. But the last time I had been there before this trip wasn't for anything good. I remember driving out of Brooklyn one night, heading back toward Queens. A friend and I got pulled over. There was a weapon under my seat. That night changed everything. We were arrested, taken to jail, and eventually transferred to Rikers Island. I spent my 18th birthday there, sitting in a place I never imagined I'd be. Not long after that, my mother packed all my clothes into a trash bag, put some money in my pocket, and drove me down to North Carolina. She told me I couldn't come back. I had been arrested twice in 6 months, and she knew if I stayed, I would destroy my life. So she left me there, far from everything familiar. For years after that, I lived far from God. I made my own choices, followed my own path, and carried the weight of my own decisions. Until one day, in a small apartment on a bathroom floor, everything changed. That's where I met Jesus. Not in a church building, not in a crowd, but alone, broken, and desperate. So when I was leaving Brooklyn last week, sitting on that plane and looking out over the city, I couldn't help but think about how different things were. The last time I left in shame. This time God sent me back as a preacher of the gospel. That's the kind of God we serve. He doesn't waste anything. He takes broken stories and brings them full circle. He knows how to restore, how to redeem, and how to put people back together in ways no one expects. Sometimes the same people who saw you at your lowest will later see you walking in purpose. The same places where you experienced failure can become the places where God uses you to bring freedom to others. That's not coincidence, that's restoration. I need someone to understand this. God is a restorer. What the enemy meant for harm, God can turn for good. Your past does not disqualify you. If anything, it becomes part of your testimony. It becomes evidence of God's grace. You don't have to hide it anymore. You don't have to be ashamed of it anymore. You can speak about it, not as a victim, but as someone who has been brought through. There was a moment during that trip that stayed with me. We landed late at night, and the only place open to eat was a fast food spot in the airport. So we sat down to eat. While we were there, two homeless men came and sat near us. I felt led to help them. I reached into my wallet and I had a small amount of money left. I gave some to one man and asked if he had eaten. He received it with gratitude. He was thankful. Then I gave money to the second man and he rejected it. He pushed it away, didn't want it, didn't even want me near him. Same offer, same intention, same generosity. Two completely different responses. As I walked away, my heart was heavy, not because I didn't give, but because one person refused what could have helped him. And in that moment, something clicked in my spirit. That's exactly how it is with people in God's grace. There are only two kinds of people in the world: those who receive God's grace and those who reject it. It doesn't matter how good someone appears, how moral they think they are, or how successful they look. At the core, there are only two realities. You either accept what God offers or you turn it away. Some people hear the truth and respond with humility. Others hear the same truth and walk away unchanged. One heart is open, the other is closed. One receives, the other resists. And this isn't about religion or performance. It's about transformation. When someone truly encounters God, something changes inside them. Their perspective shifts. Their desires begin to change. They don't see life the same way anymore. That's not something you can fake. That's something God does within you. There are people who think they're fine without God. They rely on their own understanding, their own strength, their own ideas. But then there are those who recognize their need. They come with humility, like children, willing to receive, willing to trust. That's the difference. The truth is, no one earns their way to God. No one is good enough on their own. Every person starts from the same place, broken and in need of grace. There's no amount of good behavior, no level of success, no religious activity that can replace what only God can do in a person's heart. And yet, so many people live as if they don't need him. They move through life focused on everything else, chasing things that will never truly satisfy. They look for peace in temporary places, in relationships, in achievements, in distractions, but none of it lasts. Real peace comes from knowing God. Real rest comes from being in right relationship with him. And that's not something you can manufacture. It's something you receive. There's an invitation extended to everyone. It's not based on status, background, or past mistakes. It's open to anyone who is willing to come, but not everyone accepts it. Some people hear it and walk away. Others hear it and their hearts respond. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, burdened, or tired of carrying everything on your own, that invitation is for you. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself. You don't have to keep pretending you're okay when you're not. There is a place of rest, not just physical rest, but something deeper, a rest for your soul, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a confidence that no matter what happens, you are secure. But it starts with surrender. It starts with letting go of the idea that you can handle everything on your own. It starts with humility. The reality is, God doesn't owe us anything, yet he offers everything. That alone should shift our perspective. Instead of living with entitlement, we should live with gratitude. Gratitude for life, for breath, for the opportunity to know him. When you truly understand what you've been given, it changes how you live. You stop chasing things that don't matter as much. You stop measuring your life by what you have. You begin to value what's eternal. And when you look back at your life, you start to see how God has been present, even in moments you didn't recognize at the time. You begin to see how he was working, guiding, protecting, and preparing you. Nothing is wasted. Every experience, every failure, every lesson can be used for something greater. But it requires trust. It requires believing that God's plan is bigger than your current situation. So wherever you are right now, whatever you're facing, understand this. You are not forgotten. You are not beyond redemption. And your story is not over. There is still purpose ahead. There is still restoration available. And there is still an invitation open to you. The question is, will you receive it or will you reject it? Because just like those two men in that airport, the offer is the same. The difference is in the response. And the truth is, every single day, people are responding to God in one of those two ways. Some are open, some are closed. Some are receiving, some are resisting. And what's scary is that from the outside, you can't always tell the difference. Someone can look like they have it all together, look like they're doing fine, look like they're successful, but deep inside they are empty, disconnected, and still carrying a weight they were never meant to carry. That's why so many people are tired, not just physically tired, but mentally exhausted, emotionally drained, spiritually worn out. They're trying to do life in their own strength, trying to control everything, trying to fix everything, trying to be everything, and it's too heavy. Life was never meant to be carried that way. There's a reason why people keep searching. There's a reason why no matter how much they achieve, there's still something missing. You can get the job, the money, the recognition, the lifestyle, and still feel like something isn't right. That's because none of those things were designed to fulfill the deepest need of your soul. Only God can do that. But instead of going to him, people go everywhere else. They go to distractions, to relationships, to temporary pleasures, to anything that can numb the feeling for a moment. And for a while it works. For a while it feels good. But eventually, reality comes back. The emptiness returns. The questions come back. The weight is still there. And now you're tired again. That's why the invitation matters so much. It's not just words. It's not just a nice idea. It's a real solution to a real problem. When God calls people to come to him, he's not trying to take something from them. He's trying to give them something they cannot find anywhere else. Rest. Not the kind of rest you get from sleep, but the kind of rest that settles your mind, the kind that quiets your thoughts, the kind that removes the constant pressure to perform, to prove, to keep up. Imagine waking up without that constant anxiety. Imagine going through your day without feeling like everything depends on you. Imagine having peace even when things around you are uncertain. That's the kind of rest God offers. But it requires something that many people struggle with. It requires surrender. It requires letting go of control. It requires admitting that you don't have all the answers, that you can't fix everything, that you need help. And pride fights against that. Pride tells you to keep going on your own. Pride tells you that you're fine, that you don't need anything, that you can handle it. Pride is what keeps people stuck. It's what keeps them from receiving what's being offered. That's why humility is so powerful, because humility opens the door. Humility says, I don't have it all together. Humility says, I need something more. And when a person reaches that place, everything can change. That's when transformation begins. Not when everything in your life is perfect, not when you have everything figured out, but when you become honest. Honest about where you are, honest about what you need, honest about the fact that you can't do it alone. That's where real change starts. And once that change begins, it doesn't just affect one area of your life. It affects everything. The way you think, the way you speak, the way you respond to situations, the way you treat people. You begin to see things differently. Things that once controlled you start to lose their power. Habits that once felt impossible to break begin to weaken. The things you used to chase don't have the same hold on you anymore, not because you forced it, but because something inside you changed. That's what happens when someone truly encounters God. It's not about rules, it's not about trying harder. It's about a new heart, a new mindset, a new direction. And the more you grow, the more you realize how much you were carrying before. You start to look back and think, how did I live like that? You realize how much stress you were holding, how much pressure you were under, how much fear was controlling your decisions. And now you're free from that, not completely perfect, not without challenges, but free in a way that matters. Free from the weight that used to define you. That doesn't mean life becomes easy. It doesn't mean problems disappear. You still face difficulties. You still go through hard times. You still have moments where things don't go the way you planned. But now you're not facing them alone. That changes everything. Because when you know that God is with you, when you know that He is in control, when you know that your life is in His hands, it gives you a different kind of confidence. Not arrogance, but peace. Not pride, but assurance. You stop panicking over every situation. You stop trying to force things to happen. You stop stressing over things you can't control. Instead, you trust. And trust doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what isn't yours to carry. It means you do your part, but you leave the rest in God's hands. That's a different way of living. Most people don't live like that. Most people are constantly worried, constantly thinking about the future, constantly trying to predict and control what's coming next. And it drains them. But when you trust God, you can breathe. You can move forward without fear controlling every step. You can face uncertainty without being overwhelmed by it, because you know that no matter what happens, you're not alone. And that's what so many people are missing. Not more information, not more strategies, not more motivation. What they're missing is connection. Real connection with God, because without that, everything else falls short. You can build a life that looks good on the outside, but if there's no foundation, it won't last. Eventually something will shake it. Eventually something will test it. And in those moments, what you're built on matters. If you're built on temporary things, you'll feel it. You'll feel the instability, the uncertainty, the fear. But if you're grounded in something deeper, something unshakable, you'll stand differently. You'll respond differently. That's why this message is so important. Because it's not just about feeling good for a moment. It's about building your life on something real, something lasting. It's about stepping into the purpose you were created for. And purpose isn't just about what you do. It's about who you are becoming. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way that reflects something greater than yourself. When you're walking in that, things start to make sense in a different way. Even your past starts to make sense. Even the things you went through, the mistakes, the failures, the struggles, you begin to see how they can be used. Nothing is wasted. The pain, the lessons, the experiences, all of it can serve a purpose. All of it can be used to help someone else, to make an impact, to bring light into places that need it. That's how God works. He takes what seems broken and turns it into something meaningful. He takes what looks like a setback and turns it into a setup for something greater. But again, it comes back to response. Will you trust him, or will you keep trying to do everything on your own? Will you let go, or will you keep holding on to things that are weighing you down? Will you step into what he's calling you to, or will you stay where you're comfortable? Those are real questions. And the answers to those questions shape your life more than anything else, because at the end of the day, it's not about what you had, what you achieved, or how people saw you. It's about whether you accepted what was offered to you. The opportunity is there. The invitation is open. The opportunity is there. The invitation is open, but it's up to you what you do with it, because nobody can make that decision for you. Nobody can force you to receive what God is offering. Just like that man in the airport, I couldn't force him to take what I was giving. I couldn't stand there and argue with him, convince him, or beg him. At some point, I had to step back and let him choose. And that's exactly how it works. God does not force himself on anyone. He invites, he calls, he reaches, but he does not force. And that's what makes it so serious, because you can be close to truth and still reject it. You can hear it over and over again and still walk away unchanged. Some people think they need more time. They say, I'll deal with that later. I'll get serious about God later. I'll fix my life later. But later is not promised. And even if it was, the more you delay, the harder your heart becomes. The more you ignore truth, the easier it becomes to ignore it again. That's how people drift. Not all at once, but slowly. One decision at a time. One compromise at a time. One moment of ignoring conviction at a time, until eventually they don't feel it anymore. And that's dangerous, because when you stop feeling conviction, when you stop feeling that inner pull, you can convince yourself that everything is fine. You can convince yourself that you're okay, even when you're not. That's why awareness matters. You have to be honest with yourself, not based on what you show people, not based on how others see you, but based on what's really going on inside you. Are you at peace, or are you constantly restless? Are you secure, or are you always searching? Are you growing, or are you stuck in the same patterns? Those questions matter, because growth doesn't happen by accident. Transformation doesn't happen by chance. It happens when someone makes a decision to respond differently. And sometimes that response is uncomfortable. Sometimes it means letting go of things you've been holding on to for a long time. Sometimes it means stepping away from environments, habits, or even relationships that are pulling you in the wrong direction. Sometimes it means facing things about yourself that you've been avoiding. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom, real freedom. Not the kind that looks good on the outside but leaves you empty inside. Real freedom that gives you peace, clarity, and direction. And once you experience that, you don't want to go back. You don't want to go back to living stressed, constantly worried, always trying to control everything. You don't want to go back to chasing things that don't satisfy. You don't want to go back to carrying weight that was never yours to carry. You start to value peace more than pressure. You start to value purpose more than popularity. You start to value truth more than temporary comfort. And that shift changes everything, because now your decisions are different. Your priorities are different. The way you spend your time is different. The way you think about your future is different. You're no longer just reacting to life. You're moving with intention. And even when things don't go your way, even when you face setbacks, you don't fall apart the same way because your foundation is different. You know who you are. You know where your strength comes from. You know that your life has meaning beyond what you can see right now. That gives you stability. And stability is something a lot of people are missing. They're up one day, down the next, confident one moment, insecure the next, focused one week, distracted the next. They're constantly shifting because they're not grounded in anything solid. But when your life is anchored in God, you don't move like that. You're steady, not perfect, but steady. You still grow, you still learn, you still improve, but you're not constantly shaken by every situation. You don't lose yourself every time something goes wrong because your identity is not based on circumstances. It's based on something deeper. And that's what gives you strength in moments when you would normally feel weak. That's what gives you clarity when everything around you feels confusing. That's what gives you peace when everything around you feels chaotic. It's not about having all the answers. It's about knowing where to go when you don't. And that's what so many people are missing. They're trying to figure everything out on their own. They're trying to solve every problem, predict every outcome, control every detail. And it's exhausting because you were never meant to carry that kind of pressure. There are things in life that are simply out of your control. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much you plan, there are situations that you cannot change. And when you finally accept that, it can either frustrate you or free you. It frustrates you if you keep trying to control it. It frees you when you learn to trust God with it. That's where peace comes from, not from having everything go your way, but from knowing that even when it doesn't, you're still okay, that your life is still in God's hands, that nothing catches him off guard. That's a different level of confidence, and it's not loud. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's quiet, steady, and strong. It shows up in how you handle pressure. It shows up in how you respond to challenges. It shows up in how you treat people, even when they don't treat you right. Because when you're secure in God, you don't need validation from people the same way. You don't need approval to feel valuable. You don't need attention to feel important. You already know who you are. And that protects you. It protects you from making decisions based on emotions. It protects you from chasing things that don't matter. It protects you from being pulled in every direction by what others think. You become focused. And focus is powerful because when you're focused, you don't waste time on things that don't align with your purpose. You don't get distracted by every opportunity, every trend, every opinion. You know where you're going. And even if the path isn't clear, even if you don't have every step mapped out, you keep moving forward with trust. That's faith, not blind belief, but confident trust. Trust that God is leading even when you don't see the full picture. Trust that what he started, he will finish. And that allows you to move without fear controlling you. Fear will always try to show up. Doubt will always try to creep in. But when your trust is strong, those things don't have the same power. You acknowledge them, but you don't let them lead you. You keep moving because you understand that your life is bigger than your current moment, bigger than your current situation, bigger than your current struggle. There's purpose attached to your life, and purpose requires movement. You can't stay stuck and expect to grow. You can't stay comfortable and expect change. At some point, you have to step forward, even if it's small, even if it's uncertain, even if it feels uncomfortable. You move anyway because you trust that God is guiding you. And over time, those small steps turn into progress. That progress turns into growth, and that growth turns into transformation, not overnight, but consistently. And one day, you look back and realize how far you've come. You realize that you're not the same person you used to be. You don't think the same, you don't react the same, you don't live the same. And that's evidence of change. Real change the kind that doesn't fade when things get hard, the kind that stays, that grows, that continues to develop. And that's what this is about, not temporary motivation, not a quick emotional moment, but lasting transformation, something real, something that carries you through every season of life, because life will have seasons. There will be seasons of growth, seasons of waiting, seasons of challenge, seasons of breakthrough. And you need something that remains constant through all of them. That constant is God. And when you build your life around Him, everything else finds its place. Your priorities align. Your mindset shifts. Your perspective changes. You stop seeing life only from your limited view, and you start seeing it from a bigger picture. And that changes how you live. It changes how you love, how you work, how you lead, how you respond. It changes everything. So the question remains the same. Will you receive what's being offered, or will you walk away from it? Because the invitation is still open.